just working back further, so number 2 would be that council agrees. I'm sorry, Councillor Creighton.
Sorry to butt in. 2 points. First of all, the time frame to be involved in the Rugby World Cup, would that be possible? And it would be possible for him to still be involved.
Just appoint one of their existing board members to the Rugby World Cup.
And the second thing is that, am I right in assuming that although I know that Destination Great Lake Taupo has already got a deputy chair wouldn't in this case step up to be the chairperson?
Could possibly well do, may possibly well not.
Yeah.
At the moment she will be chairing because there's a vacancy until the new board member comes along, whoever that is, then they will make their decision as to who the chair is, and they'll collaborate with us in council, probably with Rob and herself, or maybe just Anne or someone.
Fair enough, yeah.
So going for number 2, that council agrees.
Yeah.
Number 3, that council provides support and advice in the appointment of its new chairman, which is just a touchy-feely type of thing. Council invites the board to put forward a representative to fill that from their existing board that's left now, to fill the position on Rugby World Cup. And 5, that council agrees to appoint a new trustee to the board of EGLT in accordance with policy and appointment of remuneration of directors. The process will involve calling for nominations and interviewing prospective appointees or interviewing the identified candidates. I think at the appropriate time, if everybody's happy with that resolution, we'll move that. I think at the appropriate time, if Anne gets it down to, I'm presuming there'll be more, but if Ms McLeod gets it down to 2 or 3, and maybe even this council gets itself down to 2 or 3 or 4 or something, I'm not sure, but it's all a timing thing, and I'll leave it up to you, but more on that later, after we've advertised first.
Well, perhaps I could just explain number 5, because it isn't, you've got a choice there.
Yeah.
Unlike DGLT, your appointment for EGLT can be, it's not quite as formal. Well, you don't necessarily have to go through an advertising process. I'm recommending that you do. Alternatively, if you don't do that, there could be a number of names that you want, or of people that you would wish a formal approach to be made to, and then simply draw from that pool. So those are the 2 choices that are sitting there. It's whether we go through that process of calling for nominations and doing the interview, or outside of this meeting, working through a list of candidates rather than actually calling.
The EGLT one.
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Johnson?
I've been on both boards, and I think the EGLT one, there's a great opportunity to fill the gaps of the skill set. Because I know we've just recently appointed someone who had skills in the geothermal, which has been incredibly insightful to making decisions, and there's probably a couple of other areas within the region that is lacking on EGLT. So I think it is crucial that we look at the requirements and even discuss with the board what's missing in maybe forestry. I know there's no one on forestry there. Southern end of the lake, these are sort of the things that we need to add to the board, because they are doing good work and it just fills in some of the gaps. So
Are you saying we should go out and tap people on the shoulders, or should we put the advert in a paper, see what comes out and select from where you think the best fit would be?
Well, I think possibly you could look at who's available without going through the formal process, because
That's what we have to decide here and now.
yeah. So I mean, I think there are people out there that we rather than.
Do you think EGLT we should be shoulder tapping?
Well, I think they should be part of this conversation, because they know through their work anyway who's out there and who's interested. So I don't know if that's achievable.
Certainly the conversations that I've had with the EGLT is around the fact that they are looking for somebody who fits strategically with their organisation.
Is that a good thing?
And this person still in the end needs to be council's representative, but I would imagine that you would want to make sure that, and one of the points about your policy on the appointment of remuneration of directors is that you do need to look at that strategic fit for making an appointment.
So you could do it without advertising.
There's been a suggestion here by Mr. Williams. It looks quite clever to me. If you go to number 5, cross out does not agree. We've agreed to that. Go down to the line that says this process will involve. Just put a comma and cross out calling for nominations and interviewing prospective appointees. Just interviewing the identified candidates. Now, if EGLT want to identify some candidates, that's fine, and we advertise for the other one. Councillor Dano?
Mrs. McLeod, when it comes, like you said, that you'd, of course, going through the cost, and you'd have to get an independent person to come in and do the initial interviews on these appointments. Can the deputy chairman of the existing DGLT and the chairman of the EGLT be involved in the final interviews? Because to me, I'd like their input, because they're actually these entities or trusts are already up and running. Can they do that? Can they be part of us interviewing these last three and giving their input into it?
I think it is important that you do have a conversation with DGLT, and I think probably one of the things that a consultant, certainly the consultant that we use for, or have been using for making appointments to DGLT, there's no reason why he can't have a discussion with trustees, but I think in the end it's important that council is the one who's signing off on the actual doing the interviews and signing off on the trustee itself.
We've already given them the option of co-opting, and they turned that down. They wanted us to appoint a new member. But what you're saying, though, is I forget the gentleman's name.
Yeah.
I did it last time. There's no reason when you get down to 2 and 3 that he can't go along to the board before we make a final decision, say these are the 3 that they're looking at, and get a steer. Life's about steering.
But to me, when we're in the interview process, and there's us councillors, to have one more, whether it's from Enterprise, Great Lake Taupo Destination, be sitting there and asking prudent questions that we might not think of because they're in that organisation.
Well, are they allowed to? I don't know if they're allowed to or not.
I would be
That's not what they asked.
I'd be very reluctant for to be in that process, and it's about the accountability that you have. I mean, this is a board that receives a fairly substantive grant from council, and I think it's important that there is that separation between actually making the appointment in terms of governance and making sure that there's a strategic fit. So we can do that as we can build some ways of getting around this in the process, but I think when you formally go through the process of interviewing, that it probably does need to be a council.
The whole council?
Again, you could actually set up a committee to do the interviews and recommend.
Councillor Williams?
So, through the Chair, Ms McLeod, do we receive, as a council, any guidelines from the board of DGLT with regard to where they see their strategic fit when we go out to advertise for this director?
That is actually through your independent expert. Now, Mr. Bamford has been used in the past as our independent expert on this, and he's somebody who's very recognised in terms of the visitor industry throughout New Zealand, and is able to give us quite a good amount of information about the types of things that we should be looking for.
My concern is, are we looking for a watchdog, or are we actually looking for somebody who's going to make a valid contribution to our local tourism industry?
The watchdog part come.
Well, we're saying that it's a council appointee, and we're not.
We appointed all the ones that are there now.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be prudent to get some input into DGLT as to where the gaps are in their experience around the table?
Yep. And as I spoke earlier, my suggestion was that Mr. Bamford or whoever we put into being our expert could have some discussions about who's around the table and what sort of skills that they've got. But so that I'm saying that can be built into the process. It's not excluding it, but it's certainly not at the point when you make the appointment itself.
Yeah. But I mean, really, what we want is the very best person to represent our stakeholders.
That's the reason for the process that's been set up in the inception agreement.
Okay, so let's go back to the start. We're advertising for DGLT, but we're not advertising for EGLT. EGLT is going to be a shoulder tapping exercise. DGLT is going to be an advertising and a whittling down to a final 3 or 4 with Mr. Banford. Mr. Banford will liaise with DGLT to make sure that the applicants that he's got, which one fits their bill the best from our point of view and their point of view. So if you're all happy with that, going back to number 5, this process will involve, interviewing the identified candidate or candidates. Right? So who's a mover? Councillor Minch.
Just
sorry,
before you move it,
yeah.
Do you not think it would be nice to have some comments regarding Seamus in the resolution in terms of thanking him and... Pardon?
Number 1.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I tried to give my passionate, heartfelt thanks to you, Seamus.
Yeah, well,
I hope you're watching.
You made some nice comments there.
Okay, so where did I get to there? Councillor Mincher and seconder somewhere around the table. Councillor Johnson, all those in favour?